History often shows us that if a scam is good enough to work once, it's good enough to work long into the future, as there's gullible people born every minute. Today, we are taking a look at the latest way too large of a drive for way too cheap of a price in the 990 Pro NVMe 4TB drive that I picked up for just $35. And yes, this is definitely a scam. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff, and we're diving into this one with absolutely no prep work, but I already think I know what's going on here. So this is a 4TB NVMe drive that I picked up on AliExpress for $38.03 after shipping. Obviously, this is probably not a 4TB drive, but these scams pop up often enough. I wanted to see exactly what this one was about, to see if it was kind of the same old scam again, or if there's a new method to the madness. So if you're not familiar with this particular scam, this is the way too spacious of a drive available for way too little money, and often they will try to imitate higher-end consumer disks. Now, this is the first time that I've seen this pop up in an NVMe drive. I have seen this with SATA disks and even more commonly with USB drives, but they often claim to have, 2 terabytes of space for like $20. And they've done this for years and years and years. And this goes back even to mechanical hard drives, selling, a 160 gigabyte mechanical hard drive that claims to be a 4 or a 6 terabyte. The way they do that is through some very tricky manipulation of the firmware on the drive. Now, the way this works is sellers will take a very low capacity drive and spoof it into being a higher capacity drive. So when you plug these into your PC, they actually will work and they will be recognized and you can write data to them. The problem is that it does accept some data, but eventually it runs out of space and will start overwriting itself. And so you will end up losing data. You actually can't fit 4 terabytes of data onto this disk. In fact, I'd be willing to bet this is something like 120 gig or maybe even lower. But we will see what we can find out later on in this video. These are often also spoofs of actual retail disks that you'd find from legitimate companies, and Samsung is a very regular target. And in fact, Samsung seems to be the target here, not only with the branding, as this is known as the 990 Pro, as you can see on the label right here, but the packaging seems to be directly ripped off of Samsung. It's the black box minus the Samsung logo right up here. It's a very similar font, although not identical. But if we flip it over to the back, PCIe NVMe M.2 SSD, the definitive SSD for every need. In English, for more detailed and warranty and product information, please visit www.amsung.com/SSD. So they obfuscated Samsung by simply removing the S, and they didn't even shift the text over. They just photoshopped the S out of the label, which is hilarious. But they didn't do it for every language. Here in French, they missed the Samsung, and so that does say samsung.com/SSD. Also at the bottom, this is copyright 2020 Amsung Electronics. Amsung is a registered trademark of Amsung Electronics Company. So they did a good job of removing most of them, although there's definitely still Samsung spelled out plain as day in a couple places on here. On the front of the drive itself, it lists itself as a 4 terabyte disk, and there's actually a different branding on the front of this, www.delegi.com/SSD, and then down below it says Delegi, spelled completely differently. Delegi Electronics Company. So we'll have to see if we can find any information on that, although I doubt that is correct either. Then if we look at the back, interestingly enough, the text is still pretty sharp on here, and that's usually one of the main tells of a lot of these fake drives, is the text is fuzzy, because they'll literally scan it and reprint it, not use the original fonts, which are much, much sharper. But this actually, the text is pretty good. It does say, warning, product can be damaged by ESD, electrostatic discharge. And then it says, Samsung, P.O. Box 12867, Dublin, LE. But then there's no zip code. And they also missed Samsung on this as far as blinking them out. So this actually does say Samsung Electronics Company and then www.samsung.com/SSD. All of which is definitely not accurate. So I just want to, for my own amusement, we're going to go to www.delaige.com. Okay, seems to be just a placeholder site. Looks like there's some searches going on in there. Let's try /SSD. Nope. Okay. Just redirects you there. I also want to search for DELAIHE. And there are searches for 990 Pro. So let's just do that. Yep, I bought a fake 990 Pro, fake $39 Samsung 990 Pro. Looks almost real. Yeah, so there's already some people who are aware that these are passing around, which is good, but obviously this is not a real thing. But even though it's fake, you know I'm going to plug it in anyway. So I went ahead and grabbed one of my gaming PCs. Let's go ahead and get this drive installed, see what it shows up as inside the system, how much data we can write to it, and see what we can learn. All right, got it all plugged into my PC. Let's go ahead and fire this thing up and see what we're working with here. Oh, let's see, where's our NVMe config? There we go. And right off the bat, we've got our 1TB boot SSD, a Western Digital Black SN770 2TB disk, which is my game storage drive, and then we can see an SSD 4TB at 4,000.7 gigabytes. So it is showing up as a 4TB disk. All right, here we are at the Windows desktop. Let's just go ahead and go to disk management straight off here. Is that already showing up as an NTFS drive? It is. Okay, it comes pre-formatted. That's interesting. That is definitely interesting. Use space 220 megabytes. Is there anything on this disk already? No, just system volume information. Okay, so nothing nefarious. Okay. Interesting. But it does show up pre-formatted as an NTFS drive because they're assuming you're going to put this into a PC. So they want to literally put their best foot forward as being like ease of install and super easy to use. You don't have to format this drive at all, whereas any other disk, you would have to format it as a new drive when you install it. So that is something I didn't quite expect. Wonder what this translates to. New volume. Okay. It is Chinese for new volume. Excellent. All right, well, it is showing up as a 4TB drive. I think we've already established that. Let's go ahead and let's copy a couple files to it. Let's see, let's go ahead and grab a couple of my videos here. Let's grab, you know what, the Tesla Pascal benchmark was pretty good. Oof. Oof. Yikes. If there was any doubt, they were using nothing but cheap components. I think that tells the whole story right there. Sub 5 megabyte per second write speeds. Yikes. I don't even know if this is going to be able to play back the video, and that's kind of what I wanted to demonstrate here. And just for the record, this is connected over 2.5 gigabit LAN, so I should be seeing 220 to 235 megabytes per second, which NVMe should have no trouble fulfilling. Oh, there we're going to 112. That's a very weird jump. Did we already fill the drive? Is this like a 1 gigabyte drive? Okay, so we wrote that. Okay, it does play. Okay, the whole disk is on there. The whole video's on there. All right, interesting. That initial slowness was very weird, though. 5 megabytes per second, and then all of a sudden it shoots up to gigabit speed. I'm actually wondering if I have this plugged into my gig NIC instead of the 2.5. But anyway, yeah. Very slow transfer until all of a sudden after about a minute it goes, oh, okay, I'll start working now. Very interesting. Let's transfer another one. Okay, now we're getting straight up gigabit speeds. Okay, this time it's holding gigabit speed the entire time. So there's a little over 7 gigs that we just transferred. Let's go ahead and open this guy. All right. That video's on there too. So I guess my question is, what is the actual capacity of this disk? Because I think we all understand it's not a 4 terabyte drive. This is likely a 60 gigabyte drive, maybe a 120 if they, depending on what parts they sourced. You know, it's not going to be huge, but it's also got to be enough that the drive works for a little while, and that's a key part of this scam. What the scam is actually akin to a much older scam called the white box speaker scam. This was a scam prevalent in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where a guy would drive a white panel van or a U-Haul or something like that out to a grocery store parking lot. And his story would go something like, hey man, I work for a high-end audiovisual company and I'm an installer. And we had a client that bought like 6 of these super premium high-end audio systems. You've probably never heard of them because they're this really exotic sounding name. But anyway, we bought like 6 of them. And then the client turned around and said, oh, we actually ordered something else. And now my boss is on me to just get rid of these. And so they're normally like $10,000. But I'll sell them to you right now for $250. And to you, it sounds like an incredible value. It sounds like something that you need to jump on, like, holy crap, I can get $6,000 or $10,000 worth of stereo gear for literal pennies, for cash that I would have on hand going to the grocery store. And so you'd fork out the money, and then he'd give you the box of stuff, and you'd take it home. But the thing is, if he'd sold you a bunch of lead weights, then by the time he gets home and plugs it in, you can call the cops and direct them to his location. And so that's not good if you're the criminal. What needs to happen is you get home and it's actually working audio gear. It's actually something that will plug in and will play sound. You know, get to a radio or play a CD or a tape or something. So you spend the next 2 days plugging everything in until you realize, wow, this sounds like crap. And you realize that what you got was some off-the-shelf, like, $20 stereo that's been rebranded with some wood veneer and had like a really fancy Italian or Japanese name thrown on top of it. Or maybe it says Sam Young instead of Samsung. That was one that I saw a lot back in the 90s. It takes you a couple days to realize you've been scammed. In a similar vein, what you don't want to happen if you're selling counterfeit NVMe drives is for someone to get that drive, plug it into their PC and go, that doesn't work. Or that doesn't show up as a 4 terabyte drive, that's a 120 gig drive. What are you trying to pull here? You want it to work up to a certain point. And so there's a little bit of spoofing involved, whether it's making it seem like a Samsung drive, whether it's making it seem like it has more space than it actually does. So like I said, there's a firmware trick on here that this drive will show up as a 4 terabyte drive. But on this disk, there's only going to be 60 or 120 gigabytes worth of capacity. And so the drive will write all that data up until that certain point. And then when it hits the end of the drive, it will just start back at the beginning of the NAND flash again and start writing again. It has a table of contents, and the table of contents thinks all of that data is there, but it's looking for 20 pieces of data in the same memory address location. So on that note, if I go back over here, and let's copy another video file over here. Let's see if we get gigabit speeds again. I'm just going to open up this video file, and look, this video file is definitely on that disk. It is playing, and video is one of the easiest things to see any anomalies or rewrite data with, because it'll just show up as garbled information. If any bit of this video is flipped, it will no longer play back properly. And as you can see, this video is here, and we're still writing new data. Here's another video file that I'm writing right now. I'll probably be able to copy 10 or 15 or maybe even more of these video files over. Let's open this one up. Here's my HL8 launch. This one plays back just fine now. Let's see if the first video still plays back. Yes, it does. All right, let's keep going. Let's just load this thing full and see what happens. Let's get to a point where we overwrite one of the video files, and then we'll take the sticker off and tear this thing down. That one plays back just fine. How much data is on here so far? Let's see. 27 gigs. So if I'm right, I'm going to guess this is either a 60 or a 120. So actually, let me see much data is in my temp file? That's 162. I'm going to write all of this data. So 162 gigabytes. We're going to write 162 gigabytes to it. It's going to write video files sequentially. Based on where the data starts repeating, we should be able to see what the capacity of this drive is. It's not going to be 160 gigabytes. I can tell you that much. There's not that much space on this disk. If there is, I'm very impressed. But we'll go ahead and write all this data. It'll take about 30 minutes, it looks like. I'll come back in a few, and we'll see which videos play and which ones don't. But again, as we're writing this data sequentially, as I paused it off camera, there we go. As we're writing this data sequentially, it should just write data in a loop. And so there will be a start point and a stop point of which we have good video data, and everything outside of that won't be. So let's see what happens, and I'll see you in just a couple seconds. All right, we have an update here. So it has been well over an hour, actually almost an hour and a half since I left this. It's still trying to copy things, and it's down to about 2 megabytes per second. So we do have some data on here. I mean, obviously everything's been written, right? But it struggled out and has about 32 gigs left to go. So of the 162 gigabytes, it struggled starting, looks like right around 120 gigs. Weird. Almost exactly what I said it would be. Cool. Let's go ahead and cancel this. 124 gigs. Okay. So where did I stop? See, I've got 124 gigs on here right now. Oh! No, the drive's just slow. The data's there. Okay. Well, I'm not going to wait another hour for another 4 gigabytes to transfer to prove the point. But nor am I seeing evidence of 4 gigabytes, you know, us being 4 gigabytes over the limit. These videos all appear to be complete. All right. Well, what do you say we go ahead and tear this thing down, and let's get to the bottom of how much space is actually on this drive. So here we have the drive itself. Like I said, very obviously Samsung knockoff. 990 Pro, the font and overall design, pretty reminiscent of everything that Samsung does on their drives. Down here on the label, like I said, they also left in samsung.com/SSD for warranty and product information. But they've eliminated Samsung from the name basically everywhere else. I can already kind of see under the label, but I think that's the first thing that we're going to do here is let's just take the sticker off of this thing. Let's identify some of these chips. And here's your first clue that this definitely is not a 4 terabyte disk. There are all of 2 NAND flash DIMMs on this thing. And the information's been scratched away. It looks like they've actually even lasered it. There's a texture to that to eliminate the product info. Wow. They went through some effort on this one. They've also, looks like laser etched off the controller there. They don't want anyone knowing what they did or whose product line they're using for this. There's nothing but traces on the backside. So yeah, unfortunately, there's not much more information to glean off this. And yeah, that's definitely been laser etched. That has definitely been etched. All right. Well, I think we can definitively say this is not a Samsung product. So that's going to be it for today's video. This was a simple one. Just an oddity that I saw crop up that crops up every couple of years in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, I've seen this with everything from hard drives to external drives to USB keys to solid-state drives, and now we're starting to see them with NVMe drives. And if you don't know what you're looking for, this can actually be a little bit difficult to identify. Because look, there are no-name SSDs that crop up all the time for sale. Just a quick search on AliExpress for NVMe drive here. We've got Fikwat. We've got King Spec, which I've heard of before. We've got CUSU, Fanzhang. There's another Fikwat. There's X-Ray Disk, Pooskill, Nedak, Huadisk. They're all over the place. And one thing you'll notice is, even though these are brands you've never heard of before, they're still brands. This is trying to disguise itself as a Samsung SSD, and that is something that the knockoffs don't necessarily do. They want you to recognize their brand. They want you to buy their products still. They may not be a recognizable name, but they're still trying to make themselves as a name. This wants you to think it's actually a Samsung SSD by putting as much branding on it as possible without explicitly stating Samsung. While it is possible to find 4 terabyte SSDs for sometimes under $100, they're going to be used products. There's no technology that's out there that's brand new that has that much capacity in a solid-state disk for that inexpensive. If it did, it would be ubiquitous with a lot of other name brands. And the fact of the matter is that technology just isn't there yet. So, I hope this was at all helpful. I hope it was interesting at the very least. But that's going to do it for me in today's video. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you like the content you see on this channel, want to help support me in what I do, consider going on over to craftcomputing.store, picking up one of our fantastic pint glasses, or our made-in-house coasters. This one's the beer installation disc, which is one of my favorites, and start drinking like a pro. And that's going to do for me in this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, everyone. What is not a scam is today's beer for the day. It is spooky season, if anyone else follows. This is from Rogue Ales and Spirits. It is the Dead and Dead. If you're familiar with Rogue at all, you know their Dead Guy Ale. It's often referred to as a gateway into craft beer. Well, they also own a distillery, and they make Dead Guy whiskey. This is a combination of their Dead Guy Ale aged on oak chips from their Dead Guy whiskey barrels. This one is clocking in at 9.5%. It's amazing where you can get a feeling for beers once you've had enough of them. This one pours so incredibly smooth. There's no ripple at all. It is incredibly dense and thick. Man, that is a good-looking beer. Oh. And that nucleated glass is doing work. Nice. I've had this beer before. I've had a variant of this beer before. They come out with this every year about Halloween time. I've liked it a lot in years past. This year, it tastes young. It tastes very, very young. It tastes like very young whiskey. And it also tastes like it didn't spend enough... It tastes like the whiskey didn't spend enough time in the barrel, let alone the beer. Aging beers with oak chips, you infuse a lot more wood flavor much quicker than you would by pouring your beer and having it aged just in a barrel. The problem is you're coming into contact with all of the wood, not just the char. And so you get a lot more oak flavor, but you get less whiskey flavor overall. This tastes way more akin to sour mash and oak than it does to a well-defined bourbon and a dark malty ale like Dead Guy Ale is. I think this beer overall, if you do go buy this beer, I think you need to hold on to this can for about a year, and then I would like to try it again. All of the right flavors are there, but the quality isn't where I would put it yet. And this is where I really think this beer is just a little too young for its own good. Is while I do taste some vanilla, which is actually one of the hallmark flavors of Dead Guy whiskey. I've had their bourbon before, and it's very vanilla forward. It's not intense enough to balance the bitter sourness that the oak is bringing to the table. This one needs more time, or they need to actually just slow down the process and age it in the barrels instead of chipping the barrels and trying to fool time. Because if there's one thing you can't do, it's fool the amount of time that you spend in a barrel. Wood chips are good, but they're not the answer.